Today we're going to talk about where your turbo is made. In general, where are turbos made? Where are they coming from? Where are the parts being cast? Where are they being assembled? Where are they being machined? And then in specifics, we'll go into kcturbos, where a lot of our parts come from and where they get assembled, when they get shipped out from. But first, I want to go back to, I've been doing this for over a decade. There's people that have been here doing it longer, but when I first started, it was the same thing as what a lot of other people do now. You're slapping a billet wheel and a stock turbo. That's how a lot of guys start out. So in the very beginning, people would send me their cores. I'd hog out their turbo a little bit, slap in a compressor wheel and call it magic. Well, as I started searching through the supply chain and learning where parts are made and what makes turbos work, I started learning that just slapping a billet wheel in a stock turbo isn't as much magic as people lead you out to believe. You got to change covers and turbine housing ARs, the volutes, turbine wheels, bigger bearings, ball bearings. If you really want to push the limits of your turbocharger, you can't just slap a billet wheel there. Yes, billet wheels help. They're not as much magic as people make them out to be. They do help, but I specifically sat down with a lot of different other companies, billet wheel manufacturers, other turbo manufacturers, and if you make 17 different billet wheels, you're gonna really start splitting hairs. There's only so much you can do with simply a billet wheel. Well, where do billet wheels come from? Most people buy their billet wheels from the same company. Chances are someone that's telling you their turbo's made in America, 100% American made, they're probably buying their wheels from KTS, which are in Asia, Malaysia. Some people still call that China. It's not technically China, but when people throw out the word China, China, they're typically doing it as an effort to insult someone or sell their product because their product maybe can't stand on its own. So they throw out words like China or Asian or counterfeit or any of those things. Well, why are they doing that? Well, most everybody already knows they're buying billet wheels from the same company. And if they don't, it's because they don't understand their supply chain more. As you go through your supply chain more, you know more and more actual parts are made. And once you move beyond and past the Asian billet wheels that you're slapping in stock turbos, you're going to start making parts all around the world. In this global economy, even Garrett, who, by the way, we buy millions of dollars of turbochargers from. I think I asked earlier how much we've done since COVID with a couple of our Garrett suppliers. I was over $8 million in Garrett turbochargers and Garrett parts right here at kcturbos. We're still just a mom and pop shop, 27 employees, everything assembled and made right here in Arizona, but we're moving a lot of parts. When you move that many parts, you start seeing where they come from. I still see posts usually from one-man bands who make turbos in their garage, in their backyard. They're always throwing out like American made. Well, what they're doing is they're taking Chinese turbos that maybe came from Garrett or wherever, and they're slapping in Asian billet wheels, probably some rebuild kit they bought on eBay, and bam, American made. Those guys are lying to you or they're naive. Let's look at Garrett's own map on where all their turbocharger parts are made. So Garrett is arguably one of the best turbochargers in the world. Highest quality, best performing. And they themselves have a map on their website. You can look up where all their parts are made. So if you look at this map, you'll notice there are no manufacturing facilities in the United States. None. So if you have a Garrett turbocharger on your vehicle that's been made in the last 30 years, it probably was not made in America. There's not a lot that's done here in the USA. It's what a global footprint looks like. When you're making turbochargers with lots of different options, different AR housings, different turbine wheels, billet wheels, ball bearings, journal bearings, you're getting them made all around the world. So odds are your factory turbo on your Power Stroke or your Duramax was probably assembled in Mexico with parts made in China. People have asked me, do your turbos have any Chinese parts in them? Yeah. Everybody's does. If you're saying there's nothing Chinese in your turbo, you're probably just a liar, or you don't understand how the global footprint works and you don't know where parts are made. A lot of that comes down to politics and how we are in the United States, how manufacturing has been pushed down, where places like China, manufacturing is subsidized. Similar to how the farming is subsidized in the United States, manufacturing is subsidized in China. The Chinese government will literally give you a factory, give you money, give you equipment, and let me tell you, it's some of the best equipment in the world. Steve Jobs might have put it best when someone asked him why the iPhone's made in China. And he said it's not just because it's cheaper, because a lot of people like to say that there's kids and flip-flops, like, manufacture anything. That's just not true. China has put a lot of time, money, and effort into their infrastructure, their factories, the education of the people there, buying machines. They'll literally give you money to buy a building, buy the machines, and when you go to college, you're being pushed for a mechanical engineering degree. The late Steve Jobs often talked about the lackluster American system and how there isn't the push for industrial engineers, the plants, the manufacturing facilities. He said you just can't find it here in America, so sometimes you have to go overseas. So they have invested back into their own economy. Sadly, United States is the opposite. We push down the factories. The EPA gets involved, OSHA gets involved, the regulations. Government is not pro-manufacturing here. Actually, it's really hard to manufacture stuff here in the United States. That's why a lot of other countries are taking advantage of it, and sadly, we're losing because of it. But there's still a lot of assembly work done here, still a lot of machine work done here, and a little bit of heavy manufacturing, but a lot of the mining, the casting, the forgings, they're often not made here in the United States. So actually, when I first started buying parts, there was a lot of parts that I bought I thought were getting made here in the United States. I'd buy it from a company, order it for years, someone else would shop around, they'd tell me they make their parts, and I'd reach out to them and order it, and they were literally the same parts. Call out the original company and find out they were just buying it from the same company. That happens a lot. A lot of these parts are all coming from the same place. They're not the same specs. They're not always the same quality because there are different tier levels. A lot of people talk about metal grade and they throw out, oh, they don't have the right metal grade. They don't even know what the metal grade of their parts are, but I can tell you what they are of mine. I can tell you that when we get our parts, we have specific requirements for what they need to be made out of, how they need to be manufactured, the specs that they're manufactured to. But you can order from the same factory and not give them any information. You will get a lower quality, lower tier product. I remember one of the first times I got a custom turbine wheel made, and I got a sample, stuck in a truck, tested it, and it melted, like right away. Had the metal grade looked at, and the formula wasn't right. So all those wheels failed. I tested a bunch of them. They didn't go out to customers, but we did test them in-house, and they all failed. So we took the wheel and sent it back to the manufacturer, talked to them, and they started explaining there are different tier levels of product in China. A lot of people don't know that. So we got with the manufacturer and we explained the problems we're having, and they got back with us and explained. And I had to learn this the hard way over a decade ago, that there are different tier levels of suppliers. Yes, there are cheaper parts, and yes, there are more expensive parts. And Garrett for sure uses some of the best manufacturers in the world, and that is what we've always strived to do. So we have sought out the best of the best for all of our components. All the metal grade is tested. I can even show you what that looks like. All the compositions are tested. Everything goes through heavy quality control. Nothing just gets reboxed from China. Everything's assembled here, but it's also tested here. And things are tested for months, if not years, before they get released to the public. So let's go out in the warehouse and do a tour. I kind of want to show you what parts look like on a global footprint. We'll pull out some boxes, read some labels, and see what it actually looks like when you have a manufacturing facility with parts from all around the world. All right, now that we've talked about a global economy, what it looks like to get parts from all over the world, let's walk through the shop and check out some of these parts. What parts are made where, what kind of stuff is stocked here at KC Turbos. Come along. So entering into the warehouse, we're gonna pass by Joe here. Shipping department, QC, he's the final check after the turbo builders are done assembling everything, which is all done on camera. So going down the aisle of parts, let's start checking out some of these parts. All right, Ford part, made in Czech Republic, made in Mexico, made in China. Here's another Garrett, assembled in Mexico from foreign components. Another Garrett, made in China. Ford, made in China. Majority content USA. There we go. Another Ford, made in USA. Ironically, just because it's made in USA doesn't mean it's good stuff. And you guys had problems with the 6.0 standpipes recently, made in USA. I mean, even when it comes to electronics, it can be really tough to find out where they're made. But if you zoom up real close on this, designed in the USA, manufactured primarily in China, assembled in part and packaged in the USA. Let's check out a few more turbo parts here in the back. All right, let's check out some of these parts. Alliance Power, made in USA, good for them. Another Garrett part, made in China. Bunch of Garrett turbos, assembled in Mexico. So typically when you buy the individual components, they often say made in China. When you buy it as a whole, it says assembled in Mexico. So they often take parts from all over the world, assemble them in Mexico. Another Ford part, zoom in right there, made in China. Here's a Somali gaskets. Mexico. Vietnam. Taiwan. Look at that. Look at this. Assembled in USA from parts from Brazil, Canada, China, Denmark, Germany, India, Italy, Japan, Mexico, Portugal, South Korea, Spain, Taiwan, United Kingdom, USA, Vietnam. This is what a global supply chain looks like. That's what it looks like. People say everything comes straight from China. Stuff comes from all over the world. A lot of stuff gets assembled here. A lot of stuff gets assembled in Mexico. But we're going to show you what it gets assembled right here at KC Turbos. All right, now that we've seen what a global footprint looks like with parts coming from all around the world, let's see what KC Turbos actually builds here in-house. A lot of people ask, do we do any machine work? What are you actually building here? Let's take a quick tour of the back end where everyone's working. We've got Tyler here on the lathe. Tyler, what are you working on?
Pouring out some 6-7 turbine housings.
So we do a little bit of machine work here in-house, but not a lot. We're not machinists, we're here building turbos. So who machines our parts? Well, typically what we'll do is we'll get a couple of pallets of parts. We'll take them down to Dave at Val-Tech. We've worked with Dave for almost a decade now. Dave's the owner. It's actually Jason who does most of the machining. But how that looks is we'll get a pallet of parts. You take it down there and drop it off. They'll machine it and we'll fill up another pallet of parts. And then we'll go and swap them out. So we're constantly going to and from Val-Tech, dropping off turbine housings, compressor covers, bearing housing, whatever it is that we're getting machined, we're taking it there and bringing it back. All right, we're here just checking out Val-Tech, our machine shop here in Tempe, Arizona that we use a lot. Pretty cool. There's tortillas made right next door. Let's go on in and check on some of our parts and meet Jason and see if Dave's around. Looks like they might have some of our parts ready. We'll check in, we'll go say hi. Looks like he's running the machine right now, but when he's done, we'll go say hi. What's up, Jason? You in between parts? You got a minute? This is Jason. We've been working together probably over a decade now.
Right, close to that at least.
Yeah, you're the head honcho around here, right? You basically everything?
I mean,
Dave's the owner, Fisher runs the place, but you're the one that actually does everything?
I'm the one that does the good stuff.
The good stuff?
Yeah. They're all figureheads.
What are you making there? An NSX shift knob, you said? Super cool. Val-Tech makes all sorts of stuff here. Shift knobs, gears, custom brake rotors. They machine a lot of our parts, mainly turbine housings, compressor covers, sometimes backing plates, bearing housing. We just bring them down by the pallet load, usually a lot of Garrett boxes laying around everywhere. This got to be your favorite color box in the world.
I love these boxes. I take them home every now and then.
They're good, strong boxes. How long have you been machining?
How long have I been machining?
I mean, you look young, like in your 30 years. 30 years of machine work. You're a lathe guy, mill guy. What do you like to run?
I'm in charge of all the way. If anything round, anything that can get spun in a circle, I make around here.
KC Turbos doesn't actually do all this machine work, but this partnership's been going over a decade. So basically, we bring down pallets of parts at a time. Jason machines them, and then we'll swap them out when he's done. The 2 parts, 100 parts, pallets at a time, 1 at a time. They do it all. If you are watching this and you're in Tempe, Arizona, or even if you're not here, check out Val-Tech. They're located in Tempe. There you can find them on Google. They've got a Facebook now. Now, not everything needs to be machined, so we don't use them for every single part, because some parts do show up already pre-machined. But we do use them for all of our heavy machine work here in town. Back in the corner, we got Cade blasting some turbine housings for some reman turbos. We try to keep everything dirty on the other side of the building in its own area. All the sandblasting, all the cutting, all the washing, it's all done in a separate area so you know that your turbos are made in a clean environment. But we're heading up Turbo Alley now. Got Kevin up on the balancer. It looks like a 6.0 turbo. Let's see what he's actually building. Looks like he's building a 6.0 stage 1 Jetfire for Jared Fretwell from Colorado. Jared, you're watching this. It's Friday the 19th. This is your turbo getting made, going out today. Probably be there Tuesday. Check out, we got 7.3 turbo being built over here, 6.7 being built over here. This is Morgan. He's one of our lead turbo techs. Let's see what he's making. Looks like it's a 6.0. There's lots of turbos. Okay, this is multiple turbos for Dirty Diesel Customs. He's currently working on the 6.0 Stage 2 Jetfire. Then he's got a Stage 1 Jetfire with a red cover, and then a KC300X Stage 1 that he is building. We got Ben over here. That looks dirty. Ben, what are you working on?
I'm doing a 6.7 Cummins three-man turbo.
Reman, you've got to love the Reman turbos, right?
Always.
Oh gosh, we do a lot of 6.7 turbos. They're pretty problematic. We do a few upgrades to them, but typically we're just remanning stock turbos and sending them back out. As you can see, we buy parts from all around the world, and that was just a quick tour of our 25,000 square foot shop. We have thousands of parts in stock from all over the world. Billion-dollar companies like Garrett, Borg Warner, Apple, Samsung, they have gone overseas, not because kids in flip-flops are making them. They want to make the best quality product. And if we want to compete on the level with those billion-dollar companies, we got to go where the best parts are made. Some competitors would have you believe our supply chain looks like this, when in reality, it looks a lot more like this. What's ironic about this is those guys use a lot of the same suppliers we do. They know where our parts come from, and they know that they buy the parts from the same place too. And they still spread the lies that they make everything in American on American soil when that just isn't true. Now that you've seen and learned a little bit more about our global footprint, you might wonder, why don't we just sell only OEM turbos? I mean, we bought $8 million worth of Garrett turbos in just the past couple of years. Why did we modify them? Why did we change some parts out? We do all the testing right here in-house to make sure that our turbochargers perform the best and last the longest. We do all that on our own test trucks that we have here. If you go out in our parking lot, maybe we'll go show you. We've got a 6.0, a 7.3, a 6.4, a 6.7. We've got a Cummins, we've got a Duramax, got a couple of EcoBoosts. We've got tons of test trucks. Everything gets tested and checked on the dyno. We tow with these trucks. We take them to the racetrack to assure that our turbochargers have the best performance out there. And what we've learned is there's a lot left on the table when it comes to these turbos. Maybe when you're changing up the turbine housing, maybe the AR of the turbine housing, switching over the style of the turbine wheel, bigger bearings, better bearings, ball bearings. And you can't just use the 100% stock OEM turbo to do that. And although we buy millions of dollars of OEM turbos, we do modify a lot of them. Let's hop over to a workbench, and I want to show you what that looks like. And specifically the 7.3. We've got something super cool coming out this year. It's a little teaser. I'm not supposed to be talking about it yet, but I'll show you every component that's been upgraded, how it was upgraded, and what is actually left over from the OEM turbocharger. Jake is not here today, but we're going to use his bench. I don't know if he's faking sick or whether he's really sick, but it worked out great because I want to show you our new 7.3 turbos and everything that's gone into developing a ground-up, groundbreaking turbo, where some companies maybe slap a billet wheel and a stock cover and call it revolutionary. We've been over that. Billet wheels are great. They're not the whole turbo. It's one small part of a big system. So how do you make a ground-up revolutionary turbo? How does R&D work? How long does it take? So this is actually a few years old now. We cleaned it with brake cleaner. It's turned yellow, but this is a 3D printed turbo. This actually got installed on a few trucks. We checked for fitment and made sure everything that was right before we got to the final product. So we had to make a few changes along the way. And after, I think this was like 18 months, maybe 2 years of development, CAD drawing, back and forth on fitments, what we expected out of it, R&D on what flows better. And then from a 3D printed mold, you eventually end up with finished product. So from 3D mold, the finished product can sometimes take years. We're not just slapping billet wheels and stock turbos. We are developing ground-up, groundbreaking turbochargers so you can have the best of the best. Well, what's groundbreaking about it? What's different about it? Why don't we just slap billet wheels and stock turbos and act like they're revolutionary? Well, let's do a little movie magic. I'll take this all apart. Let's compare these part by part to see what all has been upgraded. All right, now we got the turbo taken apart. Let's compare the two, see what's been upgraded. We'll talk a little bit about how we've upgraded things in the past and what approach we took to this ground up turbo. So we'll start with the compressor wheel. That's what a lot of people focus on, simply the compressor wheel. The compressor wheel is very important, and we've tested them all. 7x7, 10 blade, 9 blades, 6x6, 5x5, taller blades, shorter blades, lighter wheels, thin hubs, thick hubs. There's always a benefit trade-off. You gotta find a little bit more about what you want, but you can't simply expect all the magic to come from the compressor wheel. The rest of the turbo is still, 30-year-old design. That's when the original 7.3 turbos, the turbine wheel, the compressor wheel design, a lot of those things came out in the 90s. I mean, we were going on 30 years old technology. Well, that's great. Most people upgrade the stock compressor wheel to a new modern style compressor wheel with a lot of stuff we've learned, but we've taken it way further. previously, we were the first people ever to offer an upgraded turbine wheel, and that was a huge game changer. It really got close to closing the gap on the T4 kits or the S300 turbos that everyone's swapping on. We were right on the coattails of being almost as good as they are, but we didn't want to stop there. So the KC300X, a lot of it was based on the S300 style turbine wheel and our upgraded compressor wheel designs. We did a few tweaks to the compressor covers. On the E99, the OBS, we were the first people to offer an anti-surge ring. I believe we're still the first people to offer a larger inlet. Obviously, the Super Duty had a larger inlet. Lots of people have done that. But we took it way further. So we took the cover and did a ground-up redesign. And it's going to be really hard to tell just by looking at it. But this is a 1.0 AR cover, and you never see those on turbo covers anymore. Most of the time, you look at like an S300 or a GTX 35 or any of the new G35 turbos, they got more like a 0.70, 0.72 AR cover. So we changed the volute and changed it to a 0.70 AR cover. We found that it spools faster and makes more power. It's got a lot of technology put into the inlet. It's got a lot of technology put into the map groove, into the anti-surge ring. So you know you're getting the modern technology that most modern turbochargers come on. They just didn't have this when the 7.3 came out that long ago. Look at the turbine housing. So we have previously offered different sizes. We had an 8.4 and a 1.0. And oftentimes what we found out, 8.4, a little bit too small. The 1.0, oftentimes way too big. 1.15, hated that housing. Super doggy. Most people didn't like it. So what we did is we made a 0.90. Split the difference between the two, aired a little bit on the smaller side, and we changed the volute style of the turbo. If you don't know what the volute is, it's where the air flows through the turbo, and there's been a lot of technology changes since then. Come in, zoom in close, look right here. If you look at the top of the turbo, you can see how rounded this is and how flat this is. That's because the volute on the inside has changed. It wasn't just an AR change, we increased the flow path. Actually, I cut apart some turbine housings so you could look for yourself. This is the stock turbine housing, and this is our upgraded turbine housing with a more modern volute. You can see the flow path is more direct to the turbine wheel and sprays down against the inducer of the turbine wheel instead of kind of like facing at each other, and it created a lot more turbulence right here. This turbine housing in itself spools faster and makes more power than either of the previous options that were available. Let's go over to the bearings. One of the things the 7.3 always struggled with was a teeny tiny thrust bearing. I mean, anyone that builds turbos looks at this and like for people to be pushing 500 or 600 horsepower on this teeny thrust bearing for a 66 millimeter turbo, way too small. Now, in the past, we put a lot of time and effort into sourcing the best bearings and putting the most technology possible. In fact, I've seen people try to buy just our thrust bearings for their turbos and rebuild kits, but it was still small. That's all you could fit in there. You were limited by the bearing housing and the backing plate design. Well, we made huge improvements in the thrust bearing. Not only is it bigger, it's a better design. It's not slightly bigger, it's almost 200% larger. That's a thrust bearing that could support up to a 72 millimeter wheel, so you know it's got all the support you need for your turbo. Not just the thrust bearing, we also upgraded the journal bearings. Come in real close on those and see how much larger those bearings are. They're taller, they're wider. With a larger journal bearing, we also had to change everything else to support that. Brand new ground up bearing housing. We also have a thicker shaft to support the larger bearings. We basically incorporated everything into our own custom designed bearing housing, which, as you can see, no longer has a backing plate. So the backing plate, like a lot of modern turbochargers, is integrated into the bearing housing. Makes it a little bit stronger and a little bit easier to rebuild. You don't have to worry about wiping out the whole backing plate just because of that seal. You can easily replace it. All right, we're getting to the end. We did reuse one part, and that is the outlet flange. It is the same outlet flange that's been around for a long time. There was no reason to improve it. It's fine just the way it is. And in fact, we get asked all the time, why don't you build from factory cores? Well, the reason being is this would be the only thing we could use. And ironically, Garrett gets them made in
China.
So yeah, If you buy a turbo from us, it's probably going to have a few Chinese parts in it. That's where a lot of turbocharger parts are made. But if you're going to make a revolutionary turbo like this, that's going to change the game, you can't just slap Malaysian billet wheels in a worn out, junky turbo and call it revolutionary. A lot of these turbos are going on 10, 20, 30 years old, already rebuilt multiple times. They're out of spec. They need parts replaced. If you get them new from Garrett, probably coming from China, maybe assembled in Mexico. But if you get it from us, you get a ground up, modern technology turbo that's going to blow everything else out of the water. Another area that we improved, it may be a small improvement, but it's been a big headache, the intake boot. These silicone boots have always been kind of a bear to put on. Whether they come from Garrett or Aftermarket, they always kind of fit weird. It seems like the silicone doesn't ever dry right, and this is a really complicated angle to get right in silicone. So we went to the drawing board, made our own boot. We made an upgraded intake boot, more similar to the OEM design with the ribs to make it stronger so it doesn't suck close. And the way that this is molded, it'll fit perfect every time. All right, we've gone over how the turbos are made, what we do here, why we don't use just 100% OEM parts all the time. How do we come up with the sizes? How did we know this technology worked? How did we know how it improves? We test everything in-house. We literally have all the trucks here. We've got OBS trucks, E99 trucks, Super Duty, 7.3, 6.0, 6.4, 6.7. We've got 2020 6.7s, we've got an 11 6.7, got a 16 6.7, and an 18 6.7, all right here at KC Turbos. All the employees drive trucks. We drive trucks. Yeah, some of it's done on our employees' trucks, some of it's done on my brother's truck, some of it's done on my truck, but we test these things in-house on our own dyno. All right, here we are, in-house KC Turbo dyno. I've spent hundreds of hours, if not thousands of hours on this dyno, validating parts. I don't just pick a random size and throw in a turbo and tell people it's gonna work. Everything gets tested here in-house on our own trucks. We sometimes do customer trucks. We spend hours on the dyno for each design. We test it on the street and then we swap it out for the next one. I'm gonna show you just a general idea of what this looks like and how many times we've swapped to different turbos on this truck to make sure you're getting the best performance out of it. If you're wondering how we came up with the final sizes and designs for our turbocharger, it's from in-house validation and testing. Check out this dyno graph of some of the options that we tested. This is just 1/3 of all the different sizes and options that we tested to make sure that we found the best option for your truck. So when it comes to testing, a lot of times you start with compressor maps and then you jump on the dyno and you end up on the street. But all that matters is how they perform on the street with a trailer behind it and running down the track. So not only did we test the new designs that we have, but we compared them to lots of other models. We do buy other turbos and test them here in-house to make sure you're getting the best performance out of your turbo. These turbos are daily driven, dyno tested, and track proven right here in-house on our own dynos, on our own trucks. We hook up trailers, we test them all. When you call us to say what injector size is gonna work, or what tunes do you recommend, or how is this truck gonna perform, we know because we've done it. Where you might buy a turbo from some old man that builds turbos in his backyard, slapping billet wheels and 30-year-old turbos, has never even driven a diesel truck. You're gonna ask him what size injectors to run, he's probably just gonna block you on Facebook.
If you guys do. Oh, what a block by Anderson!
When you call us here at KC Turbos, we're gonna walk you through exactly what parts you need, what pairs best, what tunes work best. And if you have any troubleshooting problems, you know we're gonna be there to help you because we do these things day in and day out. We eat, sleep, and breathe diesels. All right, there you guys have it. You've seen KC Turbos, our global footprint, what we make here, what we machine here. You've met some of our turbo builders. We have 27 people that work here. Let's pop a picture up real quick of the latest picture we took. Those are Americans, American jobs supporting the local economy. 27 people are just the people that work here. Those aren't the powder coaters, the polishers, the machinists that we work with, the other local businesses that we support, the things that thrive. You want made in America, you want American made, you can support KC Turbos. If you want to support some guy throwing Chinese wheels in some stock turbo in his backyard, that's cool too, but that doesn't mean that it's made in America. So if you're online reading the rants of some lunatic talking about how KC Turbos doesn't even have any turbo builders, or they drop ship everything from Alibaba, swing by the shop, stop by, take a tour. I've invited a few of those lunatics and it made them even more crazy. I was trying to bribe them into lying to the world. No, You're in the area, swing by. Check out our operations, our world-class facility, our in-house dyno, our awesome customer service team. Watch your turbocharger being built right here in-house. So you know when you're buying from kcturbos, you're buying from a company that strives to build the best product with the best customer service and provide the best support. Not only are you getting a great turbocharger, you know you can call us and ask us any questions about your build. We'll answer your phones, answer your emails. We're not gonna block you on Facebook when you have a warranty problem. Reach out to us. We're always helping people well outside of warranty with any sort of issues. You know we got the quality control. Don't take my word for it. Check it out online. Check out our Google reviews. I think we're at a 4.9 stars with over 800 reviews. Check us out on Facebook. Over 1,000 5-star reviews. Check out our website. There's honest reviews all over the place. Check out our reviews on other people's websites. You wonder why everyone sells KC Turbos? You're wondering why we're on everybody's websites? It's because we strive to be the best so you can have the best.
Here, tell these people something they don't know about me.